Okay, welcome again to the California Institute for Human Science. And I want to give a special welcome to three of our trustees, three of our CIHS trustees who are here today: Tim Laporte, Rick Jalusic, and Anne-Marie Cushing. And it's our trustees that also really enable us to have these amazingly wonderful conferences. So let's give a thank you to them. Okay, I'm going to try to keep this 15 minutes, and is this there. Okay, this is question. Is quantum collapse the physical world's window into Plato's metaphysical realms? So this talk is a follow-up on to Taormina, where we had a workshop on quantum collapse-related consciousness models. And I believe the only way for science to begin to address the hard and fundamental scientific problems of consciousness, those being qualia, or the subjective experience of being, and agency, or free will, and the only way to have a mind-brain relationship that is not trivialized, that does not eliminate one or the other, eliminate experiential mind or eliminate physical brain, is through connecting with the quantum state reduction process in some way. The idea that quantum collapse could be microphysically relevant to macroscopic biophysical processes goes back to the founding of quantum mechanics and has been advocated in various ways ever since by some luminaries in the field, such as Heisenberg in the 1950s, von Neumann also in the 1950s, and much more recently, Sir Roger Penrose in his books, The Emperor's New Mind, 1989, and Shadows of the Mind, 1994, and others. But this idea does remain a minority perspective in the field. Why? Well, there's been the mindset that a major reason why has been a widespread notion among neuroscientists that quantum effects cannot have anything to do with brain biophysics because of the warm, wet environment, the warm, wet argument. And also, but we've heard today several times why that's not true, why that's not needed. And then also the notion that the physical universe must be causally closed. We know in modern physics that's not the case either. And another reason can possibly be traced back to, historically, to the socio-political dynamics of the Council of Trent in the 1550s that directed that matters of the soul and mind are exclusive purview of the church authorities, and scientists who cross that boundary can be severely punished, and many were. So, but now many of us think that notion has been largely outmoded by the facts and is being discussed in many of the talks in this symposium, and there does seem to be a growing group of adherents to this view. This is especially exciting because it is also only in connection with quantum collapse processes that any kind of non-local conscious phenomenon can happen, such as near-death experiences, telepathic emotional connection with other human beings, mystical experiences. This has been noted by many accomplished physicists as well, that quantum collapse is really the only available window for those types of processes. Quantum collapse, quantum state reduction, is of course a fundamentally mysterious process in itself, on its own right, even before we connect it with the models of consciousness. It's a process by which the strange and bizarre behavior of the quantum world in its condition of superposition of multiple different states at the same time reduces or collapses to the actual classical physical world that we experience. Developing a complete understanding of this in itself is a monumental problem. To quote Roger Penrose's book, Shadows of the Mind, he wrote, and we may well anticipate that the finding of appropriate quantum classical laws that operate uniformly at all scales might herald a scientific advance of a magnitude comparable with that initiated by Galileo and Newton. So that's a once in 400-year event. It would be a big deal if we can do that. Quantum collapse has been plausibly related to consciousness in a few different ways. There are really two main ways. One way is the idea that consciousness causes collapse models. Chalmers and McQueen, they've recently followed up on von Neumann and Wigner and Stapp, who approached it that way. And the other main way of connecting quantum collapse to consciousness is through collapse generates consciousness models, and that's the category of models that includes the Hameroff-Penrose approach. On these models, the collapse events supply a non-computable process that can be a locus for connecting the biophysics with metaphysical processes such as Platonic ideals, as Penrose suggests, or other possible metaphysical systems. Altogether, these approaches suggest the need for a revolution. So let me go forward. I'm skipping a few slides. I think this process of developing a new revolutionary model of how consciousness works in reality could be seen kind of like the planetary encounters of the Voyager project. That was my early scientific career. And when you observe the planets from Earth, especially from the older telescopes, they're just points of light, and maybe with colors. And then when you build a spacecraft and you go there and you actually get close and you encounter the planet, and amazing things you discover that you never imagined are operating there. Geological processes, and they're whole new worlds. So this topic of this talk is also relevant to the now popularly trending topic of AI, text-generating artificial intelligence. And if quantum collapse processes are fundamentally needed for consciousness in biology, that suggests that classical computing-based artificial intelligence will never be conscious. It can certainly be very smart in strictly defined domains. For example, the amazing computer AlphaGo, pictured here, that crushed the greatest human Go player of all time, Lee Sedol. And now the computer Go players are so much better than the best top professional humans. They have to give them handicap stones just to have a good game. So, and conversely, quantum computing could supply experimental platforms to test some of these models of consciousness. Swami Vivekananda brought the idea of the Vedic ontology of consciousness to the United States and the West in 1893, the World Parliament of Religions. Coincidentally, the World Parliament of Religions in Chicago is ongoing right now. My friend Azim Khamisa is speaking there. And on the Vedic ontology of consciousness, you have a Atman, oversoul, unitary oversoul, out of which precipitates separate souls, or space-time, mind, consciousnesses, and that's the body, brain, action, perception realm that precipitates out of the Atman oversoul, and that's the world of science, the body, brain, action, perception realm. But in the 1890s, at that time, pre-modern physics, the world of science, it could not be causally connected to a world of a non-local consciousness or a unitary consciousness because classical physics can't do that. But modern physics creates an opening in the causal structure of the physical universe, allowing for a reunification with Vedic ontology. This sets up a structure for thinking about artificial intelligence as well. But we have the guy pictured here in the spacesuit as our keynote presenter tomorrow. So I'm not going to go through this. I'm going to leave this topic to him, and he's much more advanced at it. So I'm going to go forward. And the subject of this talk, actual theory, is a meta-ontology of approaches to the hard problem, qualia, and the consciousness causation problem, or free will. It's a type of property dualism It allows for whole new categories of problems that can be addressed, such as reconnecting with the ancient Vedic ontology of consciousness. And I'm going to skip through these slides about the history of my motivation for this topic and mention this slide, that there is an experiential route to this type of understanding through transformational yogic meditation practices like Hide Saigusa was telling us about. And these were also described by CIHS's founder, Hiroshi Motoyama. And that's why Motoyama very much supported this type of research, and that's why he founded CIHS to support and advance this type of research. So the physicalist claim is that the physical universe must be causally closed. Therefore, consciousness cannot have causal agency. But that's not necessarily true in modern physics. We know that now. And we know that generally in reality, if something can happen according to the laws of nature, it probably does happen. So that means the physical universe probably is not closed. So I'm just going to quickly mention this slide. In textbook quantum mechanics, you have physical systems that evolve according to two different processes. The system evolves according to deterministic Schrodinger equation until a measurement or state reduction or collapse happens. But this only applies to statistical ensembles of identical systems. Quantum mechanics only applies to statistical ensembles of identical systems, not to unique single events. But consciousness may be a series of unique single events, like a world record pole vault. So what is the actual reality that the Born rule about the probabilistic interpretation of the collapse behind? What is the actual reality behind that? And standard quantum physics says nothing about unique single events. But a lot of what is interesting about reality may actually be unique single events. So on fundamental properties of science are generally are governed by fundamental laws of nature, fundamental laws of reality, such as quantum mechanics, relativity theory, etc. For example, James Clerk Maxwell introduced the fundamental property of electric charge that's governed by Maxwell's laws of electromagnetics. And the traditional objection to property dualism has been that physics is a closed system. But as we noted, that's not the case in modern physics. And so on this slide, that's also the point of Penrose's three worlds. This is a picture from Penrose's Shadows of the Mind book on the right-hand side of that slide. And this is the part of the Shadows of the Mind book that he gets the most criticism about, but I think it's the best part of the book. And you see he's got the three domains of reality: the physical domain, the mental domain, and the Platonic world, or the metaphysical domain. And the mental world is the subjective world, and both the physical world and the Platonic world are objective. But the Platonic world is not empirically manifest objective world. So actual theory property dualism postulates a new property, noetic charge. We could call it noetic charge. Noetic charges emanate noetic fields that instantiate experience, and noetic fields generate conscious agency. So a brief history of introduction of new properties into physics. So in 1687, Newton introduced the property of universal gravitational mass that's acted on by the force of gravity. 1862, Maxwell introduced the property of electric charge that's acted on by the force by electromagnetic force. In the 1920s, quantum mechanics gave us the wave nature of matter, which is not really a new property, but it's a totally new thing. And then in the 1970s, there was a new property of flavor introduced, and also the new property of color charge introduced. Why can't we now introduce a new property? We could call it noetic charge, which is an ontic property of matter that instantiates experience of being, but it's not involved in any forces. It's only involved in the collapse process. So you can also look at it in a chart, look at this view in a chart like this. I won't go through all of this, but this is a timeline of the development of computers, the development of examples of types of computers and computer science and the physics that those machines work on, and also nature related to those types of physics and the timeline of physics. And I'll just point out two things here that you see that third line there, conventional neuroscience is stuck trying to operate on that line. And on this view, reality operates on the bottom line. And this is a developmental sequence here. And so that's where what I'm calling actual theory operates. What do noetic fields actually do? So in addition to generating experience and conscious causation, possible noetic field generating systems, they might include Platonic ideals, the acupuncture chi meridian system of traditional Chinese medicine, influencing the biological functioning of the organs of the body, perhaps the chakra nadi system of traditional Indian Ayurvedic medicine, and other metaphysical systems that have functional effect only where possible through collapse, such as like the Hameroff-Penrose model. So, and I think that's what Niels Bohr was talking about when he said there's a perfectly good place for metaphysics after he helped invent quantum mechanics. Okay, I think I'm coming up against time, and so I'm going to go to this slide that is, many have warned about how strange, amazing, wonderful actual theory will be when we actually develop it. Henry Stapp said that Bell's theorem, that's why Henry Stapp said that Bell's theorem is the most profound theorem in all of science. That's why John Bell himself said that the new way of seeing things will involve an imaginative leap that will astonish us. And Anton Zeilinger, who won the Nobel Prize in Physics in 2022, related to this topic, said, "This new theory will be so much stranger than current quantum mechanics that people attacking quantum mechanics now will long to have it back." Okay, in summary and handoff, actual theory that includes a new property of noetic fields that interacts with matter through the wave function collapse process can begin to address the consciousness problems of qualia and agency. And this category of theories can sustain the types of phenomenology of the revolution that our next presenter, who's remote, Sean Asbjorn Hargens, who's also a program director at CIHS, he's remote from Maine today, that's what he will discuss. And I think Sean's phenomenology of the revolution can be a good segue to our later this evening informal talk with Paolo. So do we have time for questions, or? Sure, okay, yeah.
Anybody? Questions?
They're in. It's best to speak in the mic so our remote attendees can hear.
Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Hi, thank you for your talk. So I'm really curious about the noetic charge, and my question is, why do you say that it would have no force? Because from my perspective, any time that there's an interaction, there's some kind of force that would mediate it, even if quantum mechanically, there are still ways to modulate a wave function or perturb it, perturbations, things like that. So why would you say there's no force? Could it be that there is a force, we just don't know what that force is or what the mediator is?
Well, maybe, but on this view, all it does is the only action it's involved with is the process of state reduction, quantum state reduction, which conventional quantum mechanics, all that it says about quantum state reduction is the Born rule probability distribution. So this view is that the underneath that, what's actually happening is what is the only type of physics that this is involved with, not a new force.
Another one here. This guy here. Sorry. You did, sir.
So on the question of whether consciousness causes the collapse causes consciousness, if consciousness is in part non-local, then no matter how it arises, it could go back in time and choose the parameters of what caused it to arise in the first place. That's a comment, I guess.
Yeah, and if you go back to the Big Bang, everything's still entangled in some way, and so that's one of the reasons why I'm not a huge fan of the models that approach it with simply that all consciousness does is cause collapse. I'm not a huge fan of that approach, but.